Yeah, as
Yep,
long as we got some sun, that's what matters.
that's
Mhm.
right.
It said, I think it says it's recording. Yep, because now I got reactions.
Just as long as I can go for walks and stuff.
Right.
Right.
Mhm. Because I'll be ripping my hair out.
Well, I think it's Michigan that they said they're entering orders now, um, statewide, I believe, to prevent
Yeah.
residents, right? So you can't
Yeah.
go to your uncle's house down the street.
My
Wow.
family's up in Michigan. Yeah, and they're basically just kind of, but they've been quarantined. That's what they've been doing for a while. I think they're ordering groceries online and they're just getting it dropped off. And so,
Right.
Wow.
yeah, bless the grocery store workers. I mean,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
still have to work. So,
If
Yeah.
it wasn't for the people
oh,
bringing us food, we'd be in big trouble.
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, quick expectations rundown. First of all, let's keep things very positive.
Can I get a pen?
Mhm.
All right, let me do this real quick.
No, Jack, go lie down. Sorry, that was my dog. Hold on one second.
Excuse me.
We're gonna have to wait. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's all right.
So, okay, so just keeping things positive. Do not just, I mean, reassure her if she starts to cry, just tell her everything is all right. Everything's gonna be okay. I love you. We love each other. We'll be fine. We'll get through this.
I agree. I mean, like, I agree with the tone overall, but
Yeah.
specifically, like, you remember that one of the first things that we talked about was if I don't have the answers, defer them to somebody who does. You know what I mean? Like, if my daughter asked me, what's 8 times 8, Daddy? And I can answer that, but if she asked me, to describe the process of volcanic eruption, and I'm not a scientist.
This is a good time. This is a good time for her to learn about kind of accepting the unknown, just in the sense, because I don't know what's going to happen during the, I don't know final outcomes of any case I work on. That's what I tell everybody that I work with. I don't know the final outcomes of this case.
Right. So I can't tell her, like, if her definition of it being okay is like everything going back to normal per se. You know what I mean? I can't tell her things are going to go back to what you're used to, because I don't know that.
This is when, we can guide the conversation back to something else. We can guide the conversation back to, because this is where we're going to build to. The thing about family therapy, especially with a child so young, we have to be very careful, first of all, that she's not triggered to be very, very upset. We want these to be, starting out at the beginning, these should be, where she's happy to see you, where she looks forward to these meetings, and she doesn't see it as, oh God, we're going to be really tense and we're going to be crying and we're going to be really upset.
I don't think she looks at it like that at all. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you get upset because you're upset, that's a natural response. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree with that. And we can comfort her. And also, you can say, and it's okay if you say, hey, I'm upset too. I miss you too.
I do. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. A person who's upset and constantly crying and unreasonably upset, to an extent where, they can't be consoled, and that person suffers from depression. Now, if like a person who lost, their mother, and they're upset and they don't want to go to work for a week or 2 weeks or what have you, because they're grieving, and that person doesn't suffer from depression. That's a grieving process. So I mean,
and it's an adjustment. There's adjustments, and there's grief, there's things like that. We're not pathologizing her being upset at all, but we also want to make sure that she feels
upset, she might be upset. I was just
concerned about is also that she not blame herself for anything that's happened, right? We don't want her blaming herself. We also don't want, and I tell this to all my clients too, we don't want any child to feel responsible for their parents' feelings. Meaning, okay, my mom and dad are sad. I have to do everything I can to make them happy again. Otherwise, I'm a failure as a child.
Right.
And you have raised Genesis to be very empathetic and very loving and helpful.
That's what I'm trying to point out. Is that the proof, like you said, like, the proof is in the pudding. You can tell Genesis from talking to her and from witnessing her personality. Somebody's taking the time to explain these things and to be there for her in a support system.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
And realistically, there's only so much that parents can hide emotionally from their children. Right. I mean, realistically.
But I'm not trying to make her feel bad about anything. But at the same time, like, if she said, Dad, I'm upset, like, I'd rather be at home and I'd rather be this or that. I don't want to tell her, you shouldn't feel that way.
No, of course not.
You have a right to them. You should entitled to them.
Like, and you can say, I miss you too.
I'm sorry.
And you can say, I miss you too, and which you do. That's telling her the truth. I miss you too. I think one thing that was said was, I had no idea you were so unhappy, or if you wanted to live with your mom, or like, don't go into like, okay, this is where we're going to be living, and this is what you're going to be doing, and what do you want to do in terms of living? She doesn't know.
All right.
Right now, she doesn't know.
Well, no, I can appreciate to an extent, like you, like I had came into the conversation. Now I waited 2.5 months to talk to a child who's been in my house for the past 7 years. You know what I mean? So, of course, I would say, of course, I'm gonna have like some, what do you call it, preconceived notions about where the conversation's gonna go, what I should be prepared for. Yeah. And so I was expecting that now that she's socializing, she's in 2nd grade and she's at that age where she develops very strong relationships with her peers. And I've had it pointed out to me even by the administration, because it's a small school. Like, a lot of kids aren't in the position that that Genesis is in. A lot of kids aren't in 2 different houses or this or that, and it doesn't help the it doesn't help the issue any to have the administration play it up, and the difference in Genesis' household and Genesis living situation as opposed to her friends and all the people that she's with in class. And so,
do you feel that's what's happening at her school? Because if that is what's happening at her school, that's a completely separate issue that can be addressed. If you feel like it's like the fact that she's at 2, that her parents are separated,
she handled her peers. And then she has, a brother who, I don't know if you know this or not, but when Elijah was born, the mother filed paternity claims against me and alleged that I was the father of the child. And so I filed a counter answer for a DNA test, and she refused me a DNA test. And so,
and that's something that I don't know if a freshly
I understand. That's appropriate. But it is related to her, because the reason that Kristen separates the children is to try and create a psychology amongst the children. You know what I mean? Like, my daughter wants to go live where her brother is. I've asked her before, do you want me to try and file all the paperwork and everything and bring him home? And she said yes. And that's what she initially wanted me to do. You know what I mean? That would have felt, because she feels at this point like she has a house here and a family here and a house here and a family here. You know what I mean? And that's why
opportunity. These sessions are an opportunity just to focus on you and Genesis, though. Like, that's the best thing. That's literal. Like, that is the best way to look at it.
I appreciate that.
And I understand that there's feelings surrounding her siblings, and there's feelings, and this is just for you guys. If it had anything to do with Elijah would be in these sessions, but he's not.
Well, when I referenced that, when I was telling her, hey, I don't know if you feel weird about, living in 2 houses and you're trying to, make yourself more comfortable or this or that. Like I said, I had preconceived notions coming into the conversation that my daughter feels awkward because of conversations we've had where she says she'll feel, you know, more comfortable per se. If her house was more like, you know, her best friend's house. You know,
Okay.
mom marries the dad. I mean, Kristen and he ain't even married. You know what I mean? So even, you know, even in that house, she still feels kind of like, well, I mean, it's just my mom's boyfriend, and you know, she likes that the kids at least call him dad. You know, the other kids, because that provides like, you know. So I understand like that there might be a loss of continuity for Genesis, and I appreciate that.
You're concerned she feels left out.
And that's what I was trying to speak to was, hey man, I don't want you to feel awkward or anything. And
and so you were applying that to yourself because you were thinking that, okay, she feels left out because two of her siblings are over here and she's over here. Is that what's going on?
Yeah. Like part of it.
And you know, and that could be, and this is, I am a family therapist, and as time goes on, we can address issues about what would make Genesis happier, your expectations, you know, moving forward with her. Right now though, especially since we're just starting these sessions, she's still in a very emotionally vulnerable state. It may be a good idea to just start really, really slow. Really nice, really slow. Have her guide the conversation. Fawn, would you have any objection if Genesis brings up Elijah?
I don't have an issue with that.
Okay.
My concern is where that's going to lead the conversation. Because I have, like I was telling Scott, I have very specific guidelines that I have to follow for the visit.
Yes.
So, and if that's a conversation that needs to be had, I would rather them have it with you, being that you're the therapist. I am not a therapist. I don't pretend to be. Like, I just supervise the visit and that's it.
Okay. All right. So those issues, if they get brought up, this may not even be a concern of Genesis's, as far as I know. If she can just, I think though, honestly, just beginning, let's start with just going low and slow, sticking to the positive stuff. Let her bring up the negative stuff, like if she's saying, and then, you know, just kind of guiding her through it. And, you know, you can be honest with her, with your emotions. She is empathetic. And also, you know, we just got to stay nice and calm, take deep breaths, you know, and I may do that through, if I sense that you both are getting escalated, I might just say, okay, let's both take deep breaths, just relax. Okay. And let's, and then I can restate what I've noticed you guys saying. Like, I get the impression that Genesis is feeling blank, and then she can tell me where I'm wrong or not. And then kind of moving forward from here. From there, it's just that when we bring Kristen into it, remember, she's living with Kristen, and that is her mother. So anything that could be interpreted as a criticism of Kristen, because she loves you so much, she may be very torn.
I agree.
Yeah.
But certain things are not a criticism. Like if I say your mother is a woman, so ask her about, you know, things related. Okay. So
yeah, that's a fact.
Okay, so that's a fact. So Kristen has said that she doesn't want me to have contact and speak with Elijah. That she said that. She said that to the school. And if you need to ask her that yourself for that to be part of the conversation, if she needs to verify it.
And was this conversation brought up by Genesis, or was it brought up in another way? Because you can say, because if she says something like, Daddy, why doesn't Elijah live with us, or why can't he live with us? Then I can see you very briefly saying, Elijah's not my son. Ergo.
That's not in question. So what she's talking about is when I started a sentence and I referenced something that's not in question. So if I said, you know, your mother doesn't want me to have your brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we didn't get to the and so. But I'm just saying, like that part's, it's like not disputed. So I didn't feel it had a negative connotation. If somebody owns something, if you say, I'm a vegetarian, I don't believe in eating meat, then somebody, oh, that, you know, that vegetable, you know, I don't feel like that's insulting because it's something that somebody has owned personally.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just that these, like I said, when we bring Elijah, Addie, Kristen into it, these sessions are for you and Genesis.
That, but nothing happens in vacuum. The whole reason for the sessions is to determine cause and effect. That's the whole reason for it, right? I mean, I'm just saying nothing happens in a vacuum.
No, not necessarily.
What
not necessarily, like, or at least not at this point. I think that at this point, like, I mean, we will work towards that.
I think that's everything in life, though. I mean, like when I cook the spaghetti, I cook it because I'm hungry, and then the effect is that I
in a normal scenario.
Everything cause and effect.
Yeah.
I just don't believe that you can separate. There's a saying that says, beware when they can't bring all parties to the table. You know what I mean? So when we compartmentalize things too deeply and too extensively, we run the risk of being counterproductive if we over compartmentalize things. To say nothing affects anything else. Everything happens on an island somewhere floating in the ocean.
And I'm a licensed generalized practitioner of social work. I understand there's macro, micro levels. Genesis is involved in school. Genesis is involved with friends, neighborhood, the state of Nebraska. She lives in the United States of America. I mean, there is a lot going on. I understand completely she's not in a vacuum, and yet we can't have all of her teachers, all of her friends, and everybody in her family.
Not everything that impacts her. I understand things that don't extensively impact her. You know.
Yeah. Well, those things do extensively impact her. She loves school. She's good at school.
Yeah, but not all of her friends. I'd say her best friends impact her extensively more than.
Yes. And right now, this is to focus on you guys and just moving forward with getting comfortable talking about.
You're already comfortable
harder feelings.
You saw it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm gonna be honest. She didn't tell you her nickname, and so that speaks to me as a parent to say, I'm not saying she doesn't like you, but maybe just that she's slowly building trust with you. You know.
Well, yeah, and
that's fine. That's fine. I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, you got to build your trust up with people in stages. But what I'm saying is, like, I already have her trust. We're not working from a position where we have a destroyed relationship and we're trying to rebuild it. You saw when she sees me, her face lights up. We got plenty much things to talk about. Our issue right now is kind of bringing issues to resolution, I guess you could say. If that's the issue, right? Is that we have things to we have things that require resolution. Like Elijah, for instance. You can say we're not going to talk about it. In 2015, DHS had custody of Genesis before, and they found it to be a determining factor. And I'm not going to say they ordered a DNA test, because one of the caseworkers was ordering a DNA test and they removed her, and they micromanaged what she was doing on the case. And then I mean, it's been that issue the whole time. So what I'm saying is we don't have to address it. We can address it later. You know what I mean? It's something that's going to be a reoccurring issue if it's not addressed.
Okay. All right. And I understand. If you would like, so it sounds like the Elijah issue is a huge concern for you.
I'm not saying it's
right now. That's something we can put and look at later. Because right now I just kind of I know that Genesis is waiting to talk to you.
Okay.
I know she's looking forward to talking to you.
Okay.
And this is also very, very, and I can tell you as a therapist, this is very strange for her. and she's doing some adjustments with it. So if we go nice, and she's 8. I mean, she's intelligent, she's empathetic, but she's also a little girl. She's a very little girl. And so if we can just
Can you put that in context?
the first step is to make her feel safe. The first step, that's the first step. And I know that as her,
I'm gonna ask her right away when she gets on. Ask her right away. Just to cut through the chase. I'm gonna just ask her, do you feel safe talking to your dad? Do you feel safe with me right now? If she says no, then we'll go from there. If she says yes, we don't need to talk about it anymore. I'm just saying, like, because you're.
And I mean, as her father, you are the person who she could and should feel safest.
I'm just saying.
The situation is weird.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you study her history, even her medical history, okay, there's breadcrumbs all through Genesis history. So you can go back and you can look at her medical records, and you'll see where I've kept her safe from serious detriment. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I'll send them to you.
Yeah.
I have growth charts from when she used to, when her mother used to play like a shell game with her. And I have medical charts from that time when Kristen when she had full custody of the child and she wouldn't provide me any visitation. Yeah. And I'm sure somebody's mentioned it already, that Genesis suffered a failure to thrive in childhood. And she was, out of 8 or 10 kids, out of 10 kids that you line up on the wall the day she was born, she was number 8. So she was the 8th kid, right? And she dropped below 0. I'm talking about her head circumference, her weight for age, her height for weight, all that. Okay. So when I complain about this stuff and people, oh, you're trying to disparage the mother and this and that, call it what you want to call it. I have medical records, and that's what I go off. A couple years ago, my daughter started coming back complaining that they don't feed her over there, and her mom would get on the phone and be like, well, I don't get fucking food stamps, and yogurt costs $5 and if you're upset about the price of food, then it stands to reason that my daughter's not lying. And so the stuff that I've been dealing with on a repetitive basis for 8 years. Now imagine how long 8 years is, and imagine how you would feel if it was your child. And to say things like, well, I want to mention to her that I'm upset, I'm not being able to talk to Elijah, and that I feel like I've spent less time paying attention to her as I usually do. And that's something that I need to speak on as a father. And that's something that I would be speaking on as soon as it come to my realization anyways. So just because she has a DHS case, I don't feel like that should mitigate or prevent that. I would tell her anyways, on any regular day, I would tell her, hey man, listen, see, I know I've been worried about your brother a lot lately, and I haven't paid as much attention as I should to you.
And these concerns you can bring up with the case manager, certainly.
Oh yeah, those concerns definitely, and I have, and that's what I'm saying. That, but we'll get more into that when we got time and everything. Because, like I said, like if Genesis build trust with you, and she gets to look like she's trusting you, that's gonna make you build trust with you, And that's both about it. Anybody that I see that my daughter put faith in, I'm gonna put more faith in. I think she's a good judge of character, but I also know that my daughter is in a place, like you said, you're talking about building trust and everything, and she has to build her trust up with me, and I know she trusts me, but I also know that she's been let down by a lot of people in a lot of positions that could have helped her, that really could have stopped a lot of things before they got to whatever point. Yeah. And so I want to make sure to let her know that I'm not going to be one of those people that lets her down in a situation by over focusing on her brother, which, like you said, and I told her, I said, you understand what I resent? And she said, well, don't talk about, you and the mother. And I wasn't saying that I resent the mother. I was just saying that there's a resentment for me as a father, not being able to speak to somebody that's alleged to be my son. And when I have a kid with me, 24 hours a day, I might be telling her, man, go play with your video games or something for a sec, because now all of a sudden I'm thinking about this little boy who I haven't been previously. So I want to distinguish for her the difference, you know what I mean, that I haven't given you as much attention and made as much time for you as I usually do, but I recognize that, you know.
All right. And okay, yeah.
And so
yeah,
I cannot mention Elijah. I can say there was something on my mind, but then she's gonna, what was on my daddy's mind? That's why I say I'd rather just tell her, hey, listen, you know, because she already knows too. She's there, and I'm talking to her after school about, hey, I seen your brother at lunch, and he had his head down, or he had, like, I mean, man, I do halfway feel crazy because, like, when you compartmentalize things, like I said, nothing happens in a vacuum. So if you try and like cut this and cut this and cut this and cut this, and you cut out all the stuff that goes on, like the fact that Elijah's last name when he was born was Thomas. Okay, she named him after me because she thought he was mine. Okay, and so right, but when I pursued paternity, which will give me legal rights, legal access to the boy, right, to my son, is my son. She blocked me at every step because she wants to be in control of the process. She I don't know. I'm gonna get into it, but at the end of the day, what I'm getting at is that it got so complicated for me that here's a child that I might have, like, blood is blood, right? Blood doesn't lie. If my blood's in his body, my blood's in his body. If he's my son, right?
Yeah.
So that I have a situation where I might have a relationship, you know, I mean, like a biological relationship with a child who I haven't been have any kind of interaction with for 6 years. Now he's enrolled in school next to my daughter, and the mother's doing this to try and kind of give me a hard time, to try me and see what she can do.
And you know, and I sense your frustration with that. I really do.
Yeah, I'm frustrated.
And I feel for you. And I feel your grief at the loss of Elijah, or, you know, the potential loss of Elijah.
That's not what that's not what I was getting at. What I was getting at is I seen him one day at school, and he had a black eye. And I feel responsible because I might be his biological father. But if I go and I ask his teacher, hey, is Elijah okay? They give me this attitude. Like, imagine going up into school and asking about somebody else's kid, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm at a loss where I'm trying to do what I can to make sure to provide any kind of assistance or help I can.
Yes.
And you know,
this what you brought up
takes a lot of my
this is very complicated, and yeah, it does sound like the issue is that as the family therapist, I can, well, for Genesis, I can hear you out, and I can listen, and I can empathize, but I cannot order any like DNA tests. I can't do anything like that.
Yeah, I understand.
I do suggest you take this up with the case manager if you genuinely feel that these kids are in any sort of danger.
Well, because look at this. Like, if she can prove out her little story, if she can run down her little narrative that she's trying to put together, then that alleviates her from the liability of, if these children are both, you know, children from the same father, and you give custody of one of the kids to the father but not the other, it could stand to reason that you psychologically abusing these children. You know what I mean? And so the only way that she can justify it is if she can say, I'm preventing something. I'm preventing abuse for this child. You know? And so that's why he doesn't have Elijah and he has Genesis.
Okay.
But you have to, like I said, you have to look at the paperwork. And the paperwork is that Kristen has, when she took off with Genesis, like I told her I didn't want to be in a romantic relationship with her, and she disappeared with my daughter, and she would call me from private numbers, and she would ask me if I ever want to see my daughter again and stuff like that. Crazy stuff like that. Disappeared, left the state, halfway starved her to death. Told people when she left that she was running from an abusive gang member and all this other stuff, right? Characterized the hell out of me. Okay. If that's true, if that's true that this person is running for their life, right? Then we wouldn't have a second child. But here we go with the second child, right back. As soon as things don't go her way with the second child, same thing. Same thing. Go read the court papers. All of a sudden, oh man, I'm running for my life. And it just goes right back to, so Kristen has a narrative that she wants people to adopt about me.
Okay.
She don't want you to adopt it, you to adopt, you know what I mean? This is who Genesis lives with half the time. So when people say, well, first of all, I haven't heard what my daughter did have to say. But when they say, if your daughter was to say that you heard her, why would she say that if it wasn't true? And like you said, like, you know, as far as people being a part of a larger whole or a smaller group or all this and all these different interacting parts inside somebody's life, all the dynamics, I can think of a million reasons. But I can think of very strong and legitimate and very reasonable reasons. You know what I mean? I can think of very logical reasons. Like,
yeah.
And I can think of, and I also understand my daughter's frame of reasoning. You know what I mean? I understand, like, we talk through a lot of things, so I understand how she reasons things out, and I understand her ability to reason things out and her adherence to logic. So I understand that she understands, like, the process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I told her, I said, if you feel like you're more comfortable, because we've had that conversation. Would you feel more comfortable, bro, going and living at your mother's house? And is that something that, does it make you uncomfortable or something? You know what I mean? That all the kids that you go to school with, they have a family with a mom and a dad and a brother and a sister and a dog, and you know, and if you come here and you're just with your dad, do you feel lonely? Or do you know?
Well, for what it's worth, I know quite a few children who are being raised by a single father.
And I don't feel weird. I was gonna say, I don't feel weird about it. I get a lot of compliments in public because, like I said, we're engaged with the public quite often. In fact, this spring that's coming up, we're supposed to go back to another language conference. I don't know if it's going to be canceled due to the social distancing guidelines and everything. We work the Omaha Arts Festival every year. Like, we do a lot of stuff in the community, and so people come up to me and they tell me, "You're doing a great job." I've had people watch me before. Like, we were at a video game one night, video arcade at Dave & Buster's, and a guy came up and told me when I was checking out in the prize circle, he was like, "That's your daughter, man?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Man, you look like a real fun dad." And it was just small, you know what I mean? But it felt good to me to be like, man, people think that I'm doing a good job, and I'm proud.
And I'm sure that you know of other single dads. I'm sure you know other single dads.
Right. But it just, in her school, I think there's maybe one. There may be two. You know, the school's like 150 kids, and it's a church school. So it's overwhelmingly like traditional